Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Rhonda?
I thought you were going to pass out. You did that for so long. Hello, David, and welcome everyone, all of our listeners, to episode 240. And this is a two-part series, episodes 240 and next week 241. And this is live work with one of the therapists in our Tuesday group, Elizabeth. And David, why don't you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Just a few quick things. There'll be a part one and a part two. The part one will take us through the initial testing and empathy, and then the part two will have the exciting conclusion where we do the assessment of resistance and the methods. I think this will be a great podcast for people, or two podcasts really, one session broken into two parts. And Elizabeth has problems that anyone can identify with, an extreme achievement addiction due to her fear of living in poverty, the way her father ended up in poverty when she was growing up, and also getting burned out in your career. And she's suffering extreme anxiety, which has been with her whole life since age 13. And it's been intense. A second point that I want to make is that this personal work is a part of the training of therapists. I don't think that you can really do world-class therapy unless you've done your own personal work and made it work for you. So you can tell your patients, I know how you feel. I've been there myself. And I can show you the way out of the woods and show you how to get back to joy and self-esteem, and in this case, inner peace. Mm-hmm. Third thing I wanted to say is that to allow your personal work to be published on live on a podcast takes tremendous courage and vulnerability. Most of us try to hide our weaknesses and shortcomings, and Elizabeth is actually running an incredibly successful anxiety clinic in Northern California, in Oakland and Alameda Island area. And now she's coming on and say, I too have struggled with anxiety, and that takes courage. And an interesting thing is that therapists often specialize in an area where they themselves have struggled. And I think you'll be incredibly moved and inspired by what you learn and hear. And I think Elizabeth will touch your heart. And finally, when you hear live team therapy, and I have to thank my co-therapist as well as to thank Elizabeth and Jill Levitt, who I just love working with. Jill, I love working with you, Rhonda, as well. And these are both powerful women, but also bring so much warmth and heart to the therapy and to the podcast. And one reason I like doing live therapy with Jill is she's tremendously shrewd as a therapist, but she's also just kind and compassionate, and she came up with some really brilliant stuff for homework at the end of the session, and you'll see how that homework panned out as well, because we have about a 2-month follow-up on the live work. And finally, you can listen to errors. You can find out what works and what doesn't work. And we made two kind of blunders during the session, and we were able to recover from them. And so I think it there's a lot here, whether you're a general citizen type or a patient or a therapist. I think you can benefit tremendously from these from this live therapy. And so you're about to join our Tuesday group at Stanford and witness the live therapy with Elizabeth.
Great. Before we start Elizabeth's personal work, can you tell us about the 2 upcoming workshops that you're offering?
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah, May 5th, which is just a couple days, I'm going to be repeating the Cognitive Distortion Starter Kit, which was an extremely popular workshop. And I've completely revamped it with all new videos. I got very excited about this workshop, and I spent a whole weekend. It was already a great workshop, and I completely redid it from top to bottom. And so if you haven't had a chance to hear that Cognitive Distortion Starter Kit, you can do that day after tomorrow. This is Monday, and it's going to be Wednesday, and it'll be
May
on
5th.
May 5th, West Coast time. And if you'd like to register, you can either go to my website to the resources tab and then the upcoming workshops, and you can find the link to the registration there. Or you can just go to jackhirose.com, HIROSE.com, and you can find the upcoming talks and conferences and workshops there, and you'll find the Cognitive Distortion Starter Kit. And one thing to remember is that the price of it, which is $247, which sounds ridiculously expensive for a one-day workshop, it's in Canadian dollars. And so if you're, paying in U.S. dollars, you'll be getting, a huge discount because the Canadian dollar is only worth like 70 cents or something like that. And also, a lot of times listeners want to get into my workshops, and some people won't let general citizens into my workshops, like the Feeling Good Institute won't permit it. But I think Jack Hirose does allow you to.
That's
come,
great to know.
Yeah.
So
this
anyone
workshop.
can go to jackhirose.com, JACKHIROSE.com, or to your website, feelinggood.com, and find out about the May 5th Cognitive Distortion Starter Kit.
And then another cool one-day workshop that's coming up on a Sunday, is that May 16th?
Yes, it is, May 16th.
I've always wanted to do a full-day workshop that consisted of nothing but live therapy sessions. And Jill and I are going to do that I think it'll be mind-blowing, and we'll treat 2 people live before your very eyes. It's like watching a high wire act without a net, because we this isn't role play or anything. This will be the real thing, and you'll have a chance to see exactly how team works. We'll stop. We'll make teaching points. You'll have a chance to do some small group exercises as well. And I might say that the Feeling Good Institute one-day workshops with David and Jill on Sundays have been getting bigger and bigger. We had like 450 people at our last workshop. The first one we did, we had about 90, and we thought that was huge. And so register early, because we can't take an indefinite number of people because of the fact that we have these breakout groups, and we have to have all these small group leaders. So check it out. And that one is very inexpensive. I think it's like $117 or $107 or something ridiculously cheap to my way of thinking. And I think you'll just have a very exciting day. We're excited about it. And every time I work with Jill, it's just high energy, just like when I work with this fantastic Rhonda.
And to register for that workshop on May 16th, you can go to 2 places as well, to the feelinggood.com, your website, or to the feelinggoodinstitute.com website.
Yeah.
Whatever is easier for anyone.
Super. Okay, let's take it away, and I hope you enjoy today's show and next Monday's show as well. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to work with you. You're already beloved here in the group, and then when you share an area where you've been hurting, it just brings us even closer. And so when you volunteer for personal work, hopefully you'll do yourself a favor, because you'll not only get great help, but also great understanding from the patient role, understanding you can't get from the therapist role. It'll give you a deeper understanding, but it's also a gift to us because we learn, we feel inspired, we feel closer to one another, and it's just the best teaching possible. So take it away, Elizabeth, and tell us your scores, which we'll jot down, and then tell us what's been happening.
Yeah, so just thank you so much for this opportunity, actually, everyone, and David and Jill. It's a real honor. So my BMS is for depression. There isn't. I'm feeling, a little sad in the dumps, 1, but it's a 1, and that's it. Nothing for suicidality. Anxious, I've got a 3 there for anxious and a 2 for worried and a bit intense and on edge and nervous. So that's a total of 6. Angry, I'm a bit frustrated right now about something that happened today. So that's a 2, no annoyance, no resentment. I'm not angry. Irritated is a 1, so it's a 3. Mm-hmm. And I would say, as far as the happiness scale, happy and joyful, a 3. Hopeful and optimistic. Well, since I'm here, I'm extremely hopeful and optimistic for tonight. Self-esteem is a 2.5. Motivated and productive, a 3, and pleasure and satisfaction is a 3.5.
So what's that total? That's out of 20, is it?
Yeah, that's out of 20. So I didn't have time to total that. Sorry. So we've got 3 and 4, 7, 2.5, 3.5. That's 6, 14, and motivated 17.
Oh, almost a perfect score. 20 would be a perfect score.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty happy today. So yeah.
Oh, great. Cool.
Play out. Okay. And as far as relationship, I put down my husband. This isn't a relationship issue, but I would say that we're looking at
just total score.
A total score that would be a 27.
Just that's pretty high. 30 is a perfect score. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of 30s. There's a little room for improvement there, but that's pretty solid. So tell us now what's been going on. I know it was triggered by the workshop a week ago Sunday, I think in part by the no practice, learning to say no, and it sounded like that triggered some emotion with you and some issues with you.
Yeah, it didn't. So what it did is it reminded me, to be honest, the actual trigger was, I think the podcast I was listening to you did in December with someone with no practice. And then long ago when you did the no practice podcast with Jill, and it always got me thinking of like, oh man, that's probably something I really need to work on. But I'll go over here and work on this over here. And so because this is kind of I guess I want to say the issue tonight is a bit of an octopus, meaning that it has all sorts of arms to it. And I've worked on various different aspects and it's helped a lot. And what I mean by that is overall, it has to do with me doing too much in life. And I've worked on procrastination, which I've overcome a lot. Then I used to get into the space where I would complain and be overwhelmed all the time. And then I figured out, well, the only person that's putting me in the position of being overwhelmed, since I'm fully self-employed, is me. Right. And that I'm the one that's taking on. And that was a huge shift. And so I started getting that like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is what I'm doing to myself and my perception about that. And then the other part of it too, I would get highly anxious. And that was I'm 57. That was in my early 50s, actually. that I had extreme anxiety attacks that were also related to postmenopause. Menopause did not treat me well. And hormonally was just totally thrown off and just accelerated my anxiety. But the anxiety component really triggered by lack of self-confidence and discovering that not only was I giving myself so much to do, but I wasn't feeling confident in doing it. And I've worked on that. Now, fast forward to what I've give you today, which is I still do a lot. I don't feel overwhelmed about it anymore. I'm confident in what I'm doing. Those have dialed down, but this no thing, I'm fully aware that there's always a situation. So the one I gave you on my daily mood log today is the flavor of the month, basically. There's always something that I'm not saying no to that is filling my plate more than it should. Right now, it's the pandemic. Perfect. I can't turn clients down. They all need help, right? And so that's kind of the issue now. But this is a perfect example, I think, of the fractalness of this, because if it wasn't the pandemic and not being able to turn down clients, it would be something else that I wasn't saying no to. It would be maybe my associates need extra supervision, and of course I want to give that to them, or my daughter needs something, or my husband needs something. There's always something that is just really throwing me off balance. But the mood log I gave you today was really, like I said, the specific thing for this month or this time. And it is a specific type of client. It's that person that calls that says, I've been through several bouts of therapy. I was referred to you by so-and-so or somebody, and I've looked at Team CBT, or I just heard you do great work, and, you got to see me. And I just go, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us can identify with that. And let me just see if I can summarize kind of what you said here, Elizabeth, that the no practice that we've done on several occasions got you to thinking, well, that's something I should work on, but you always kind of set it aside and work on something else instead. And that this issue has a long history with you, and there are many aspects to it. One of the key ones being just doing too much in life, and there was a phase when you would complain and about being overwhelmed, and then get yourself overwhelmed by taking too much on, and that there was a time during menopause when you got highly anxious and had intense attacks of anxiety, which you related to hormones, hormonal changes, but also that at that time you didn't feel competent and confident. And now say I still feel my plate more than I should. And I tell myself things like my patients really need me, and so on your daily mood log is just reflecting this as well. And some of you might want to jot this down. You indicated that the upsetting event is getting a referral, and when I was in private practice and surviving on my income from my patients, I always used to get very excited when I got a referral. I'm sure most of the people in the group feel that way. It means survival, and it might mean that somebody respects and admires the work that I do, and then in addition. A good thing that you don't have any free slots for 3 weeks, and yet this person you think you could help, and they'd be a good candidate for team. And you came up with I think 10 classic negative thoughts that are kind of all different versions of the same fractal, different ways of saying the same thing as I want to take this person, they're a really good candidate, and you believe that 100%, and you say, but my schedule has to be full. I think what you mean, I have to keep it full all the time. I can't or perhaps shouldn't miss this opportunity. All these you believe 100%. I can work late for a couple of Saturdays 100%. I can't turn this person away 90%. I never know now when my calendar might suddenly become empty 100%. I need the pressure to function 100. I can work overtime. It's not a big deal, 90. I have to work all I can now, 100. And this person is suffering, and our work will probably help, and that's 90%. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about this, and I'm sure Jill wants to jump in too. My last question, and then I'll turn over to Jill, is that I'd like to hear a bit more about this, because it sounds like maybe you're on the one hand thinking, now I'm coming to a phase of life where I can take care of myself a little bit and not have to be overcommitted and overworked constantly, and yet there's a part of you fighting against that and the old pattern of, I better get it when the getting's good, and so forth. So maybe you're kind of wanting to break this pattern, but afraid of doing it, and I'm just kind of wondering what you might be drawn to now. What if this problem were solved, what might you be doing that you're not giving yourself much time to do?
Well, that's a good question, which I'll answer in a minute. But I also just want to note, as soon as you said letting go of this pattern, my heart just started racing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of anxiety with this. That's why when, in the email I sent you, the emotional pieces that just real quickly, this is a lifelong pattern. I mean, I don't want to go into too much, but it started probably when I was about 13, as far as having to constantly push myself. I come from more of a family that didn't have a lot of money, and I was working at age 13 to do a lot of things. And so it's in me. There's a strong belief that who I am today is because I push myself so hard. And what if I stop? And that plays out in moments in time like what just gave you. Now, if I did slow down, what would I do? Well, I would take more walks, and I would invest more time into my meditation and what I call my Dharma practice. I practice Buddhism, and there's a lot of teachings. There's a lot of things I'd love to do. And it's getting near the time where I need to start turning towards things like that. My daughter's off at college, and, my husband and I, what feeds into this, ironically, is that my husband is an IT guy during the day, but he's a science fiction writer by heart, and that's what he does. And if anybody knows a writer, they're very kind of solo people, and they do very well on the weekends by themselves so that their wife can continue working. And then we go for walks in the evening, and the relationship works great. So, and I say that, I mean, it really does on many ways, but what he does is a very solo thing, and he's very engaged in it right now, and it's very exciting. And so that kind of enables me right now too to work on the weekends. It's no big deal. I don't have any children to take care of. I can just do this, right? But I'm a few years shy of 60, and I'm starting to think, I don't know if this is not a good thing. The other thing I didn't say is that at some point in, I don't know, between 45 and 50, I can't remember exactly when, probably because I'd like to forget about it. I had adrenal fatigue because I pushed myself so hard, and I had to have treatment for a year or so. So this has manifested physically at times too. It's not right now. I've learned how to manage that. Acupuncture and CBT basically have been my two life savings through this whole thing. But I'm now at a place, and I think you hit it, David, where I'm like, okay, so do I keep going like this? How long can I do this? I really need to think about slowing down. But when I do, I get terrified in some way.
And what is it that I'm afraid of in slowing down?
It's really still, sadly, the financial piece.
So what is that? If I slow down, then what?
If I slow down, then will we be able to pay for my daughter's college? Will we have enough retirement?
Can we write these down?
Sure.
And can we change them from rhetorical statements to questions to statements? Like if we slow down, might not have enough for daughter's college and for retirement?
Exactly. And I think retirement is the driving force now. I'm scared. I'm scared. Well, are we going to have enough? Is it going to work? I mean, we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing, and there's movement there, but it's kind of like, what?
Sure. And then what? If I slow down and I don't have enough for my daughter's college and for our retirement, then what am I afraid of? What's the worst that could happen?
Well, then they're kind of two different threads. The worst that could happen is that my daughter would have a bunch of student loans, and just for her, her BA, and in retirement, we'd end up, and that's probably the worst thing. Here's the emotion.
Just let the emotions kind of come tumbling out, and you don't need to even say anything until let yourself have a good cry.
It's the emotion of like, what's going to happen to us?
Mm-hmm. And then,
and I'm coming off of that because it happened to my father. Mm-hmm. My father's whole life collapsed near the end of his life.
What happened there? That sounds really sad.
Yeah, he was self-employed and got sick in his 60s, and just he was a very different person. But the house ended up falling into foreclosure. He ended up in a skilled nursing facility, literally overnight, and died with no money. He died on Medicaid, and so is my mother.
It's so sad. So is that what you're afraid of, that you'll lose everything or something and die alone or in a nursing facility? Or
it's an unwarranted fear, because even as I say it, I know it's not going to happen. I mean, our system is so different than what my parents had. And I can live with very little, actually. I mean, if I went off to do my Dharma practice and, live with other people, that would be fine. I mean, I'm not looking at keeping up a lot of things. So it's a rather unrealistic fear, but it drives me hard.
It's been driving you your whole life, I guess.
Yeah, it has.
And then you started out poor, too.
Yeah.
So that's beautifully stated, and really appreciate your sharing. I'm going to give it to my more gifted half here, Jill. I'm handing you the baton here.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'd like to just spend a little time, connecting with you, Elizabeth, and empathizing. I think David's done a great job of that. But yeah, I mean, I felt really connected with you just now. It sounded like you have this fear that if I were to slow down, if I didn't take that patient, if I didn't keep my caseload really full, right, take kind of everything that comes my way, that I won't have enough money to support my daughter. I won't have enough money for my own retirement. And that triggered your emotions around your dad. It sounds like that was actually really traumatic for you to see your dad lose everything at the end of his life.
Yeah. Definitely was.
And it sounds like, for that reason and ever since childhood, it's felt like you needed to work your butt off and take any opportunity in order to protect yourself from something like that happening. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. in addition to always, yes, just having to constantly keep things moving and always have a plan B if plan A doesn't work. And it was predominantly around money, but it was money for survival, which is different than money for thriving.
Yeah. I
mean, quick interject here, and then I'll let back off again. But I'm wondering if there's pretty intense anger here and frustration, which are actually by far the most intense negative feelings. And I wonder if there's a feeling of injustice or unfairness, that you should always have to be doing so much and can never be allowed to unwind or enjoy or relax.
I don't know if I think you're onto something. I don't know if it's about not being able to unwind or relax, but the injustice and unfairness just simply about, I don't know what it's about. It seems to be more related to my family views and values when I was growing up than to, like, feeling really angry that I can't take a break, because I'm so scared to take a break that I'm not feeling angry about it. I'm more terrified. And maybe that's it, of just wishing. It's more of a wish. I just wish this work ethic wasn't driven into me so hard, and that it wasn't about survival.
Back to you, Jill.
Are you saying then, Elizabeth, that yeah, in a way, it doesn't sound like the anger is toward the world. It sounds like the anger, potentially you're upset with yourself for not being able to give up this way of being. I don't know if that's what the anger, irritated, upset, that I drive myself so hard, or that I still struggle with this after all these years, or potentially angry with your parents for, not taking better care of you or not providing better for you, such that you have this work ethic. But I'm just guessing here, so I hope.
No, your guess is pretty there, though, Jill. It's anger about it having to. So, well, I'll do the distortion. Always have to be about money. So everything that I've pushed for, it had to be. The bottom line was, early on, can I pay the rent? Can I do this? Am I going to be able to pay for graduate school? Am I, it always, there's so much focus on money when that truly isn't who I am. I'm not really big on money. I mean, I get there's value in it and we need it, especially, in America, but and so that's what it is. I'm just pissed off that it has to be this, that I have this view that it has to be this way. It always has to be about money.
Yeah, and about survival. The money piece for you is not, it could be for someone else to have fancy things or something, but for you, the money, it's terrifying. It's about not having enough money and therefore being homeless, or not surviving rather than really thriving.
Right. Yeah. Not being able to pay the bills is really, and there's truth to that.
It's almost like the anger is I'm sick of this, right?
Yes.
Right. Because I really do hear that conflict within you, Elizabeth, which is that on the one hand, I do hear that, I'm sick of this. It sounds like for years you've been thinking you wanted to find a way to be less overwhelmed and take things off your plate, and it sounds like you've solved other problems along the way beautifully, right? You've come really far, solved a lot of problems around, anxiety and blaming others, taking responsibility, all these things. And yet at the same time, you're still stuck with so much on your plate. Right. And so I'm frustrated that you're kind of still in this place of taking on more than part of you would want.
Yeah.
But there's still part of you, as we talk about, learning to say no, even that idea, learning to say no, that there's still part of you that feels terrified even at the thought of change.
Right. And I think that's what it is. It's that terrified that I'm tired of. I mean, if anything, I guess my miracle would be here if it isn't to say no, because I honestly don't know if I will do that, but I want to be at peace with this. And I don't want it always to be about that thought chain and those distortions about money. I really want that to go away.
Yeah, let me understand. That's what you're saying right now sounds super crucial, but I'm not sure I totally got it. So, because originally, just to sort of talk out loud with you, Elizabeth, originally as you were describing it, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like a habit or an addiction, right? She's kind of like tempted to say yes. And wants help in saying no, but you're saying something a little different, I think, which is really helpful, right? Say, can you say it one more time? It's something about like, I want to feel differently about this.
Exactly. That's what I want. And I thought hard about this week because I've done some positive reframes on this myself. And I keep coming back to, I don't know if I can let this go. I don't know if I could do a no practice, but what I want is I want to feel differently about it. I think and you honed in on the distortions around that it's always about money. That wasn't clear to me until now, that thought that comes up. And I want to let that go. I want to be thinking about this differently. I want to feel differently. I don't know if I'll do differently, at least not right now, but I just don't want it to give me the headaches that it does. And the health problems, literally.
Yeah. And when you said, I want to feel differently about this, I think I want to think differently. So if we could wave a magic wand and you kind of walked out of the session this evening, tell me what would be different. How would you be feeling differently?
I would be at peace with the level of busyness I have now, knowing fully that it's a choice and that I can change it. That's what it is. It's more of wanting the freedom to change it or not, wanting the thought process, because right now it's so locked into the have tos and the shoulds, and it's always about money. And then, David, you're right, honing in on the anger about that I get locked up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I don't want anymore. I want the sense of freedom and ability and choice.
So, but does that mean that, because again, I see it clearly and then I sort of lose it and it changes a little bit for me. Like, because at first I thought you were going to say, I want to be not so anxious about money. Like I want to be able to, I don't want to feel so worried and stressed out about money. But then you said something different. Like, actually, I want to just be at peace with my level of busyness. That would mean kind of the opposite of working on saying no. It would be saying, I just want to accept where I'm at right now and feel good about how busy I am.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I want to feel good about how busy I am. When you said that, I went, I don't know if that's exactly right. So you're right about... Go ahead, Dave. You got a question?
I was just say, I think Jill was just reflecting, and I was hearing too some ambivalence about what it is you want to change. And I heard you saying you don't want to become less busy, but you just want to continue to be overwhelmed but happy about it. For example, yesterday, Alex and I worked on the app, and we started at 7:03 a.m., and we worked pretty much nonstop, except Alex had to take a 2-hour break to see patients. But we went up to a little after 5, and there was no breaks. So both of us would rocket out to go pee every now and then. I mean, we weren't just sitting and peeing in our pants. But aside from that, we were working nonstop. But it was a very euphoric experience because we were just having so much fun editing and coming up with ideas. And it sounds like you wouldn't mind being, still pretty active, but you'd like to be doing it from a place of joy and excitement rather than from a place of terror. And that you're not only terrified, about you're kind of like a feral cat or kitty who's had a kind of a terrifying early experience, and so you're constantly on the alert, trying to keep yourself from some terrible thing from happening, and you're angry at that because it prevents you from kind of being peaceful and really having fun with life and all the many things that you've achieved, which are really pretty impressive and beautiful and remarkable. I don't know, did I get that right at all, or?
You did, actually. That's it. Yeah, because what you just described that you and Alex went through yesterday, I totally know that flow. I've been there, and I'm good with that. You're right. But it's I want that experience more from that, and to have more joy, whether I'm working or not, or what I'm doing, and not be in this place of terror. You're right.
So yeah. It's like if we were psychic surgeons, we could kind of cut out that terrified tumor.
Yes. Can you do that?
Yes, we can. Jill has a special instrument for that, but we're not quite there yet.
Exactly. Yes. You didn't know that I'm a surgeon. No, but I was going to say, right. So then, Elizabeth, like someone might call and you might choose actually to take an extra patient because you really want to, or because you feel like they need it. So it's not really that you're trying to work on, but you don't want to take an extra patient because you think I might need the money.
Right. Exactly.
Because you're afraid that if I don't take it, something bad would happen.
Right.
But you aren't necessarily saying, because some of these thoughts are of a different nature, but it sounds like the ones you're clear about wanting to work on is this idea that like my schedule must be full, or, I'm not sure other than the like, I'll run out of money, right? Like I must take this person because otherwise I won't have enough money.
Exactly. That's what I want to, yeah.
I must have a full calendar. I can't have any openings. But is the end of it? Like, or I won't have enough money. Is there any other, do you have thoughts about like, that means that I'm worthless or lazy or?
No, I've eradicated a lot of that. But what there is now is because I'm so used to this pressure, and I don't know if there's a thought to this. That's what I said. The pressure forces me or motivates me or whatever I wrote.
Yeah, you said I need when it's pressure to function.
When it's not there, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, so if I literally have a whole day off and the schedule's full and the business is going well and everything, and I got this whole day, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Right. I feel really thrown off because that pressure has been there for so long. It feels weird when I don't. And I think that terror keeps that pressure there. They work together. Right.
And then what is your worst fantasy if we didn't follow it all the way to the bottom, so that, let's say you can't support your daughter and you can't support your retirement. What are you the most afraid of? What's your core feared fantasy? What's the worst that would happen? Our app let's say Alex and David's app comes out, proves more effective than human therapists, so you lose all of your practice.
Oh, David, I that thought has crossed my mind when you say those things. I love the work you're doing, but it scares me.
We're going to have a killer anxiety module, I'll tell you.
I'm sure you will. And I think, oh, great. Now I won't have any clients. And then,
yeah. So what are you the most afraid of? What's the worst that could happen?
The worst would happen is that I'd end up, what comes to my mind is that I'd end up like my dad on Medicaid in a nursing home. Totally dependent on the system.
And then this might sound ridiculous, but what about that would be bad? Why is that frightening? If you're in a nursing home.
Yeah, what's frightening about that is that because then that would put the rest of my family, i.e. my daughter, if she's in a relationship, other people that know me, in this awkward place to see me there. because I wouldn't want her to have to support me or help me. I actually think that's probably the worst case, is that my daughter, as she gets to be an adult, would have to support me.
Yeah. And then
That's probably,
suppose that happens. What would that mean to you? Why would that be upsetting to you? And, obviously no one would want to be in a nursing home with their daughter supporting them, I don't suppose. But what are you afraid of there? What does that mean to you?
That means that I've just continued the family legacy, and I don't want to. That legacy of,
failure.
Yeah.
What legacy. Did you say, Jill?
I said that I'm a total failure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Am I a total failure? I'm totally dependent.
Okay. And then if I'm being totally dependent, I'm from Mars and I don't understand these things.
Right.
Is there something bad about being totally dependent? Because on Mars, we enjoy being totally dependent, but what's it like here for humans?
Here they don't, because yes, there's where the failure comes then in. If I am totally dependent on my daughter or family at the end of my life, I have failed.
Yeah. Can I ask you another ridiculous question?
Sure.
I didn't get what you just said. You said, then I have failed. So are you saying that there's something bad about failing? What is it about?
What is it about failing?
If I say I failed,
then I'm worthless.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what it is. I'm worthless.
Then I'm worthless. And could I just take it one more ridiculous step? Is that bad? And what if I'm worthless? What then? What would that mean? Is there something bad about that?
If I'm worthless,
then
is there some consequences? I have no value. The truth comes out that I was never enough. I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm. And then
That's where it goes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we could leave it at that, but how are we doing in terms of understanding how you're thinking, how you're feeling? How are we doing in terms of your feeling accepted or cared about? What grade would you give us so far? Would you give us a B, a C, a D?
As far as feeling cared about and accepted, I would say a B plus, A minus. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because I noticed that I'm feeling some shame here. That's pretty strong.
Oh, tell us about that.
I feel so sad.
That sounds really important.
As you're being so open and vulnerable with us, it makes me sad to know that you're feeling ashamed. Yeah, will you tell us about what's coming up for you?
Yeah. I think that's it right there, Jill. When you said that, what brought up my fear is that because I would be rejected.
That you're worried that if you're sharing this kind of worldview with us, that you're sharing your heart and what makes you tick and what you're all about, that we would reject you. But if we knew like how intense you are or how important for you to be independent and not dependent on others, that we'd reject you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or are you saying that because you're showing your vulnerabilities here in the group, we'll reject you or judge you, or is it only
I think
all of the above?
All of the above. And the whole world's going to read, all the above. Because what you just did there that was so lovely, Jill, is that you just reassured me that I wasn't going to be rejected. And that your statement was so odd to me because I was almost expecting something was going to happen here that I'm going to get rejected. And by your statement, that assured me it wasn't. And then it brought up all these tears. And I realized that.
I do think, quite honestly, some of that is our error, actually. I mean, I do think we've done a good job of thought and feeling empathy, but I don't think that David or I have shared our feelings with you or done adequate stroking. And so when I suddenly realized that you were feeling ashamed and I said, I feel sad to know that you're ashamed, I mean, that was probably my first I feel statement. And I think that the likelihood is that David and I are both feeling very much admiring of you and very grateful for you for being so open and human and admiring your work ethic and your independent spirit, but we haven't shared it with you yet. And so it's probably a combination of you maybe struggle with feelings of shame anyway, right? So I don't want to rescue you, but I also want to own our error, which is that I don't know that we've been kind of warm enough and shared enough of ourselves with you in the process either to make you feel comfortable.
But sad also to see how much of a struggle life is for you, and how maybe there's not a lot of joy there sometimes too, and just constantly living with terror instead of with a sense of freedom.
Right.
And something that's just robbing you of your capacity for joy. And it's just you're struggling and suffering a lot, and it makes me sad too to hear that, because I have so much respect for you too. And it's sad too. I know once on a hike, when we were doing some work, and it came up how you maybe expect others to not love you or accept you, or maybe to be critical and judgmental. We were just going up on Artemis Ginson area. I'm sure you remember that, and maybe feeling that a little bit now, that maybe David or Jill or some of the people in the group might be even judging you right now. Is that right? Or
yeah, I mean, judging me or just I'm suddenly feeling more connected now. That shame actually is dialed down. If it was 100%, it's like down to like 40 or 30, just from all the things that you both said. I like the way you balanced each other out. Because Jill,
we don't want you to let it get too low, though.
I know. I need to keep a healthy dose.
You'll become shameless and impossible to live with.
I probably would be, actually.
Elizabeth, you were giving us feedback. You were saying why that happened.
Why that happened is because of your acknowledgement. I think you're spot on when you were saying, I thought, wow, what an incredible teaching point. That I think you were right about. I hadn't heard I feel statements in stroking. And so I was starting to get more nervous. Right. And then David, you're right about, just feeling ashamed and worried about being rejected. And I do remember that hike. And so you're both spot on. And as you both were talking, I could just feel myself kind of just settling more, like, oh, okay.
What makes it settle? What makes it okay?
The connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, I didn't say we're not judging you.
Right. I know that. And that's okay if you're so are you saying, yeah, it's okay if you're judging me? I'm not I think it was more now you got my brain all twisted up.
Well, that's okay. You can be as twisted up as you want. My only point was a humble one, and probably not even valid, but that if you go about trying to reassure a person, it might actually convey the wrong message. And I think that sometimes just to talk about, wow, you're feeling kind of rejected now, and I'm sad to hear that, just brings it out and into the open in a pretty safe way. So, no, we don't judge you. We think you're wonderful, or something like that is can be maybe have the opposite of the desired effect, cheerleading, in other words.
That would have been very often.
I think there's a fine line, though, because it's also our job to help Elizabeth right now to feel understood and to feel connected. And,
Right. That's right.
I think Elizabeth has shared actually so much about what's core to her. And, personally, I do think it's important to share. This isn't reassuring you. This is just saying, as you describe yourself as this hardworking, 13-year-old, my heart just melts, right? I'm just thinking about what a driven person you have always been. And I can totally understand. And it makes so much sense to me why oh, sorry, my cat is meowing so much. What he feels for you. He's agreeing.
Yeah.
Sorry,
A cat's meow is a beautiful thing.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, it's a very personal thing that you're sharing about this worldview. And I do want to say I admire it a lot. I think it's pretty amazing how hard you've been working and how important it has been for you to not only survive, but, to avoid the downfall that you saw your father go through. It was really touching to me to hear you describe that, and to me, how important your daughter is to you, that you would just never want to feel like a burden to your daughter, that would be, kind of worth anything and everything to you. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it's the piece of, it's just, I have not ever, I don't talk about this stuff anymore because you just don't in your adult life.
Because what?
Because in a way you just don't in your adult life. You don't openly tell people a lot of things, or at least I don't. And maybe that's part of the problem. So part of the shame and just the tears is about a feeling of overwhelm in a good way, that, there's 57 people on this call tonight. And it's funny, I'll do a I keep checking to make sure the number's the same, because I'm imagining some of you are going to drop off because you're bored or something. Right? Or my story is off-putting, or I've offended someone, or you can't believe. I mean, it's just crazy what's happening right now.
But yes, I understand what you're saying. It's we're all lucky, Elizabeth, to have each other. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, it's true.
And so many people are sharing in the chat.
I know. I'm reading the chat box.
Really close to you and really moved, and that they're crying, and that they're not dropping off. So you're getting a little mini survey right now, because like it or not, I guess that people, Elizabeth is seeing the chat box, and people are sharing that your story is very relatable, and that they're moved to tears, that they feel close to Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
So Elizabeth, I was going to ask you, David asked you kind of what kind of grade we were getting, and we were getting maybe I think it was a B+. And then we, shared a little more, and you shared a little more, right? We did some I feel and some stroking, and just kind of took some time to hear a little more about your feelings of shame. And how are you feeling in terms of how we're doing right now with empathy?
A+. Absolutely. Yeah. It's very solid and strong. Yeah.
And just a tiny little teaching point, then we'll push along. How many of you have used this? What's my grade this week with patients? Put your hands up. I see maybe half of you, which is pretty good. I think you should use it with every patient every day. And if you're not, maybe you could ask yourself why. And I think it takes courage. I think it's frightening. You don't want to hear that you're getting a B+. But if you just say, what am I missing? Tell me the part that's not there. Then things will suddenly whoosh to a deeper level. And I guess that's about all that I wanted to say. But that every single one of you who's not using this technique, your practice will instantly improve the moment you start using it. But it'll take courage, and you can't say, "How am I doing?" because that's a total waste of time. The patient will say, "You're doing fine." You have to say, "What's my grade?" And then what we've learned recently from, I can't remember who, Michael, was it you? Yes, somebody I think attributed this to you, to say to the patient, "Am I getting a B, a C, or a D?" Don't ask, "Am I getting an A or a B or a C or a D?" And then let the patient give you a grade. And if you get a B plus, that's a winner because you failed. And we're hoping for failure, because then you can bring things to a deeper level.
Right. You always say, David, it's not failing that's the problem. It's not knowing that we're failing that's the problem, or not knowing how we're failing that's the problem, right?
Or being so ashamed that you don't want to know.
Right. And knowing it is not the problem. Then we can actually...
Yeah. Well, thank you, folks, for listening to that, and stay tuned next week for the part 2, the exciting conclusion. Any final comments, Rhonda?
No, just that you're going to see some techniques that I've never been published on this podcast before, so it'll be a very exciting episode. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. We have talked about flooding and cognitive exposure, and you're going to actually hear that happening. It's going to be very, very dramatic. I've taught that, but I've never before on a podcast, in a recording, have I demonstrated powerful and in some ways frightening exposure techniques that most therapists are afraid to use, and which is unfortunate because they're amazingly powerful and helpful techniques. So that's something to look forward to next week.
Great. Okay. Until then.
Bye-bye, Rhonda.
Bye. This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.